I do want to give a few reminders, including one to myself. Please turn off your cell phone. I'm doing it right now myself. So that means that the screen is completely black, like it's not on, silent, but totally off, just like this. So we are completely turning off our cell phones. Another just housekeeping announcement. Please know the show runs about an hour and 10 minutes. Please do not leave early, because you will be walking right through the stage, and you'll be opening a door that's used as an entrance for actors. It will be confusing for everyone, so please don't do that. Lastly, I'd like to draw your attention actually to the program. You open up the program. So this is a play based off a real-life hate crime. And with that in mind, I want to just read to you to make sure everyone really sees it, especially the last two paragraphs of the notes to the directors, the notes from the directors. So I'm just going to go ahead and read that. Be aware that some language in the play is offensive and inappropriate. For real. Since it is language used by real people who lived in Laramie during the time, we kept it in so as to create a realistic picture of the town. However, neither the directors nor the members of the cast and crew condone such language. We hope that the play itself makes it clear why. In the end, this is a story about hate. Sometimes we hate others much more than we realize, and that can have terrible consequences. Although the events of this play took place in the 1990s, we think they speak to the world today. Let this be a time to reflect on what it means to be truly accepting of those who may seem different from us, not only in terms of sexuality, but in terms of race, class, gender, and all other aspects of identity. And with that, I turn it over to Dana.
And I would echo exactly what Ms. Freed said. This play means a lot to me. I'm old enough to remember very clearly the Matthew Shepard incident, which was in 1998, and it lives with me to this day. So we hope that you enjoy this play because it means a lot to everybody in the cast. And we're glad to bring it to PHA. I just wanted to give a couple of shout outs. One is that this is a cast of 22 people. Which means that we are growing our theater program, and that is wonderful. And for the first time in PHA Theater, we actually have a 7th grader who is a member of our cast, so I'm going to give a shout out. And I also want to give a shout out to an alum who is here, Justin Von Bosaw, who is videotaping the show for us. Now, I'm going to be in that booth like a maniac running sound cues and light cues, but I'm also a character in the play, the narrator. So from now on, I'm the narrator. In 1998, November 14th, members of the Tectonic Theater Company from New York City traveled to Laramie, Wyoming to conduct interviews with the people of the town to find out what they felt about the Matthew Shepard incident. They went back to Laramie 5 or 6 times and conducted over 200 interviews. The play that you are about to see is the words of the people of Laramie and the journals of the members of the Tectonic Theater Company. Without further ado, The Laramie Project. Company member Greg Perotti.
We arrived today in the Denver airport and drove to Laramie. The moment we crossed the Wyoming border, I swear I saw a herd of buffalo.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
I stopped at a local inn for a bite to eat, and my waitress tried to explain to me to no avail what chicken fried steak was.
Just past the Welcome to Laramie sign, the first thing to greet us was Walmart. Now, in the dark, we could be on any main drag in America. Fast food chains, gas stations, but just as we passed the University Inn, on the sign where amenities such as heated pool or cable TV are usually touted, it said, "Hate is not a Laramie value." My first interview was with Detective Sergeant Hing of the Laramie Police Department. At the start of the interview, he was sitting behind his desk, sitting something like that.
I was born and raised here. My family's third generation. It's a good place to live. Good people, lots of space. We're one of the largest states in the country, and the least populated.
There's so much space between people in town, so there's so much time for reflection.
Rebecca Hilliker, head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming.
You have an opportunity in your life to be happy.
I love it here.
Doc O'Connor, limousine driver.
Best thing about it, the climate, the cold, the wind. Some say the Wyoming wind will drive a man insane. But you know what? It don't bother me. I moved here after living in a couple of big cities.
Philip Dubois, president of the University of Wyoming.
In the summertime, my kids play out at night until 11. I'm not even thinking twice about it.
It's a good place to live. Good people, lots of space. Real clear and crisp. With the mountains in the background, little snow on them. Now, when that incident happened with that boy, a lot of press people came here, and they were nothing but restored.
It's hard to talk about Laramie now, to tell you what Laramie is for us. If you had asked me before, I would have told you Laramie's a beautiful town, strong sense of community, everyone knew everyone. But now, after Matthew, I would say Laramie's a town defined by an accident, a crime.
Jedediah Schultz, student at the University of Wyoming.
I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. Now, when it came time to go to college, my parents couldn't afford to send me. I wanted to study theater, and I knew that if I was going to go to college, I needed to get on a scholarship. So there's this competition, this Wyoming State High School competition. And I knew that if I didn't get first place, I wasn't going to get a scholarship. So I went to the theater department of the university, and I asked the professor, I was like, "Hey, I need a killer scene." And he was like, "Here you go, this is it." It was from Angels in America, and I knew that if I did a good enough job, I'd get first place. Now, you have to understand, I invite my parents to everything. They come to everything that I ever do. And I did that competition, and they brought me in their room, and they told me that if I played that character from Angels in America, a gay man with AIDS, that they would not come see me because they believe that it's wrong, that homosexuality is wrong. And they feel so strongly about it that they wouldn't come see their son do probably the most important thing he'd done to that point in his life. And I didn't know what to do. I had never ever gone against my parents' wishes, so I was worried about it. But I decided to do it. And oh man, that competition was amazing. We took first place and we won. And that's how come I can be here at university, because of that scene. But to this day, that's the one thing that my parents didn't see me do.
I met today with two longtime Laramie residents, Allison Mears and Marge Murray. They taught me a thing or two.
Well, Laramie was like when Marge was growing up. Well, it was mostly rural. Yeah, I could run around the house in my all-togethers, do the housework while the kids were in school, and nobody could hear me. And if they did, well then, that's their problem.
Let me just make sure I got the expression right. In your all-togethers?
Well, yeah, I mean, why wear clothes? Now, how's it gonna present his play?
So, this was a big ranching town.
Well, not just ranching. This was a big rival town. But I'll tell you this, Wyoming is bad in terms of jobs. I mean, the university has big, high, whoop-de-doo jobs, but the bulk of the people are working minimum wage jobs. Now, if it worked for the university, we'd be SOL.
What's SOL?
Shit out of luck! Come on, Lordy. Boy, you're getting an education today.
Yeah, I guess I am. So, let me just ask you, what was your response when this happened to Matthew Shepard?
Well, I've been close enough to the case to know many of the people. I have a daughter that's on the sheriff's department. But as far as the gay issue, I don't give a damn one way or the other as long as they don't bother me. And that's the attitude of most of the Laramie population. They might poke one if they were in a bar situation, you know, they were drinking. They might actually smack one in the mouth. But then they just walk away. Laramie is live and let live.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
Today, we met some people who actually knew Matthew Shepard. One was Doc O'Connor, a limo driver.
I got a call on the 2nd of October, around 10 after 7. It was Matthew Shepard, and he said to me, "Can you pick me up at the corner of 3rd and Grand?" So I pull up at the corner. Matt was a little guy, 5'2", soaking wet. I bet you weighed 97 pounds tops. Some say he weighed 110, but I wouldn't believe it. Now, anyways, he walks up to the window. He says to me, "My name is Matt, and I want you to know that I'm gay, and we're going to a gay bar. Do you have a problem with that?" And I said, "How are you paying?" The thing is, Laramie doesn't have any gay bars. Neither does Wyoming. So he's paying me to take him to Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour away. Matt was a blunt little shit. You see what I'm saying? But I liked him because he was straightforward. Maybe gay, but straightforward.
I also spoke with Romaine Patterson, one of Matthew's closest friends.
Whenever I think of Matthew, I think of his incredible beaming smile. I mean, he'd walk in and be like, you know, and he'd smile at everyone. He just made you feel great. But Matt definitely had a political side to him. I mean, he really wanted to get into political affairs. That's all his big interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. At least that's the only TV station I ever saw his TV tuned to. The last time I heard from Matt was about 48 hours before his attack. He told me that he had just joined the gay and lesbian group on campus and that he was getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot. Matt was really stoked about school. Yeah, he was really happy about being there.
Let me tell you something else here. There are more gay people in Wyoming than in Seattle. I know for a fact. They're not the gays, what you call them, the gays, the queens, the gays, the run-off faggot type people. No, they're the ones that go build of hay, jump on horses, brand them, and kick ass. You see what I'm saying? Like I always say, don't fuck with the Wyoming queer, because they'll kick you in your ass.
Catherine Conley, professor at University of Wyoming in Laramie.
My understanding when I first came here is that I was the first out lesbian or gay faculty member on campus. And that was in 1992, so that wasn't that long ago. My first week, I was in my office and this woman called. I could hear her. She was on her keyboard clicking away. I said, "Hello, this is Kathy Connolly." And she said, I hear you're gay. I hear you are." And I was like, "Uh-huh." And she was like, "I'm one too." And so, she was this kind of lesbian who knew I was coming, and she wanted to come over and meet me immediately. She later told me there were other lesbians who wouldn't be seen with me, that somehow I would irreparably taint them, that just to be seen with me could be a problem.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
Today, we divided up to go to different churches in our community. I was given a Baptist church. Here's what I remember of the Reverend sermon that morning.
My dear brothers and sisters, I'm here tonight to bring you the word of the Lord. Now, I have a simple truth that I tell to my colleagues, and I'm going to tell it to you today. The word is either sufficient or it is not. Scientists tell me that the world is 5 billion or 6 billion years old. After all, what's a billion years, give or take? The Bible tells me that the world is 6,000 years old. The word is either sufficient or it is not. I am a biblicist. which means the Bible doesn't need me to be true. The Bible is true whether I believe it or not. The word is either sufficient or it is not.
Stephanie Meade Johnson, Unitarian minister in Laramie.
Dominant religious traditions in this town: Baptist, some Catholic and Unitarian, Mormon. The spectrum would be on the left of the panel. So far left that I am probably sitting by myself is me in the Unitarian Church. Unitarians are by and large humanists, many of whom are atheists. And to my right on the spectrum, to his credit, Father Roger, Catholic priest, who is well established here, and God bless him. He did not equivocate at all when this happened. He hosted the vigil for Matthew that night.
Father Roger Schmidt.
I was really jolted, when we did the vigil. We wanted to get other ministers involved, and so we called some of them. And they were like, we're gonna stand back and wait and see which way the wind is blowing. And that angered me immensely. We were supposed to stand out as leaders. I thought, wow, what's going on here?
Doug Laws, head of the Mormon Church in Laramie.
God has set values. Once you kind of know what the bounds are, then you sort of get a feel for what's out of bounds. A family is defined as one man, one woman, and children. That's a family. That's about as clear as you can state it. There's no sexual deviation in the Mormon Church. No leniency. We just think it's out of bounds.
Yes, hello. My name is Lee Pondakowski. I am here in Laramie working with the theater company. I went to the Reverend, your husband's church, this past Sunday, and I was extremely interested in speaking to him about his thoughts on recent events.
Well, I don't think he'll want to talk to you. He's very biblical views of homosexuality. He doesn't condone the kind of violence, but he doesn't condone the kind of lifestyle, you know what I mean? And he was just bombarded with press after this happened, and the media has just been terrible about the whole thing.
Oh, I understand. It must have been terrible.
Oh yes, I think we were all hoping this just goes away.
Well, do you think I can speak to him maybe just briefly?
Well, all right. You can call back tonight, time.
Thank you, I'll do that.
The Fireside Bar was the last place Matthew was seen in public. Here's Mike Galloway, the bartender who was working when Matthew was last there.
Okay, I'm gonna make this brief, quick, get it over with. But it'll be everything, factual, just the facts. Here we go. 10 o'clock I clock in, usual time. 10:30, Matthew Shepard comes up, alone, sits down, orders a Heineken. We had karaoke that night, 20 or 30 people here. So what can I tell you about Matt? If you had 100 customers just like him, it'd be the most perfect bar I've ever been in. And nothing to do with sexual orientation, okay? Absolute mannerisms, manners, politeness, intelligence, always tipped, good conversation, dressed nice, clean cut. Now, that night, approximately 11:45, Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson come in. I didn't know their names at the time, but they're the accused, they're the perps, they're the accused. They walked in just very stone-faced, dirty, grungy, rude, gimme, that type of thing. They walked into the bar and paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters, which is, something you don't forget. $5.50 in dimes and quarters is a freaking nightmare. Now, Henderson and McKinney, they weren't intoxicated at all. They just came in, they ordered a beer, took it back with them there into the floor and kept it themselves. Next thing I knew, probably half an hour later, they were kind of walking around, no beer. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to ask them if they want another one, because they obviously just paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters. I have a real good feeling they don't have any more money left.
Romaine Patterson, Matthew's friend.
Money meant nothing to Matthew, because he came from a lot of it. And he would hand over his wallet in like 2 seconds. They can say it was robbery, not apply.
A few moments later, I looked over and Aaron and Russell were talking to Matthew Shepard.
Aaron said that a guy walked up to him and said that he was gay and that he wanted to get with Aaron and Russ.
Kristen Price, girlfriend of Aaron McKinney.
And Aaron got aggravated with it and told him that he was straight and didn't want anything to do with him and walked off. He said that's when he and Russell went into the bathroom and decided to teach him a lesson not to come onto the street.
Okay, no. They stated that Matt approached them, that he came onto them. I absolutely, positively disbelieve and refute that statement. 100%. Why would he approach them? Why them? He wasn't approaching anybody else in the bar. They say he's gay, that he's going to come on to people like that. Bullshit! He never came on to me. He came on to them? I don't believe it.
Matthew was the kind of person, like, he would never not talk to someone. If someone started speaking to him, he never had any problem just striking up the conversation.
I was the last person Matt talked to before he left the fireside. I was just wiping down the counter and I saw he was heading out. So I said, "What, man, getting ready to leave?" And he said, "Yeah, man." But then I noticed Aaron and Russell were standing outside. You could see they were standing there, and they were looking over at Matthew, and Matthew was looking over back at them. You could tell the guys were getting anxious to leave. When they left, it was in a black pickup truck. It was a small truck. 3 of them sat in the front, Matt in the middle. I didn't think nothing of it, you know? I didn't figure those guys were gonna be like that.
A friend of Aaron McKinney.
Oh, I've known Aaron a long time. Aaron was a good kid. That's how I was shocked when I heard this. I was like, he was with me on farm at his trailer house with this girl. They just started dating last summer. He must have gone pregnant as soon as they started dating, you know, because they had a kid. He was only 21 years old, but he was running around with a little kid. At the time I knew him, he was trying to, you know, he was trying to fit in. Acting tough, acting cool. He'd get in his face about it. He'd back down. Like he was some sort of scared kid.
A friend of Russell Henderson.
Russell was just so sweet. He was the one who was the Eagle Scout. I mean, his whole presence was just quiet and sweet. So of course it doesn't make sense to me. And I know like people snap or whatever. And it wasn't a real intimate relationship. We just worked together at the truck wagon. I remember like one time at the Christmas party, he was totally drunk out of his mind, like we all were. And he didn't change. He wasn't belligerent. His personality didn't change. He was still the same little meek Russell. I remember him coming up to me and saying, "When you get a chance, can I have a dance?" Now I just want to shake him, you know? What were you thinking? What in the hell were you thinking?
Unitarian minister Stephanie Meade Johnson.
The fence. I've been out there 4 times. It is so stark and so empty, and you can't help but think of Matthew out there for 18 hours in nearly freezing temperatures.
Alex Kreifels, the girl who found Matthew out there at the fence.
Well, I took off on my bike about 7 p.m. from my dorm on Wednesday. I just kind of felt like going for a ride. So I went on top of Cactus Canyon, and I'm not super familiar with that area, so on my way back down, I didn't know where I was going. I was just sort of picking which way to go, which now, it just makes me think that God wanted me to find him, because there's no way I was going to go that way. There was this rock in the ground, and I just drilled it. I went over the handlebars and ended up in the ground. I got up, and I was kind of dusting myself, and I was looking around. And I saw Matt. And he was just lying there by a fence, and I just thought it was a scarecrow. I was like, howling's coming up, thought it was a howling gag, so I didn't think much of it. But as I got closer, I noticed his hair. And that was a major key to noticing it was a human being. It was his hair, because I just thought it was a dummy, seriously. But when I saw hair, well, I knew it was a human being. So I ran to the nearest house and ran as fast as I could and called the police.
I responded to the call.
Officer Reggie Flutie.
When I got there, I seen what appeared to be a young man, probably 13, 14 years old, because he was so tiny, laying on his back, and he was tied to the bottom end of a pole. I did the best I could. The gentleman that was laying there, Matthew Shepard, he was covered in dry blood, all over his head, dry blood underneath him, and he was barely breathing. I was going to breathe for him, but I couldn't get his mouth to open. His mouth wouldn't open for me. He was covered in, like I said, partially dry blood and blood all over his head. But the one place on him where he didn't have any blood, on his face, was where it appeared he had been crying, down his face. His head was distorted. I mean, it did not look normal. It appeared as if he suffered a really harsh head injury.
I was working the ER the night after Matthew Shepard was brought in. I don't think any of us could remember seeing a patient in that condition in a while. Some of us who've worked at big city hospitals have seen a patient in that condition, but many of us haven't worked in big city hospitals. And it's not something you would expect.
There was nothing I could do. I mean, if there was something I could have done to help him, I would have, but there was nothing.
He was tied to the fence extremely tight, so I pulled out my boot knife and I tried to slip it between the rope and his wrists. I had to be extremely careful not to harm Matthew any further. When I finally got the knife through there, we rolled Matthew onto his left side. He quit breathing immediately, so I put him back on his back. When the ambulance got there, we put a neck collar on him, put him on a backboard, and drove the ambulance to Evanston Hospital's emergency.
Now the strange thing is, 20 minutes before Matthew Shepard was brought in, Aaron McKinney was brought in by his girlfriend. I guess he got in a fight later on back in town. So I'm working on Aaron, and then Matthew comes in the ambulance. Now, at this point, I don't know the connection at all. So I tell Aaron to wait, and I go treat Matthew. So we have Aaron McKinney in one room of the ER, and Matthew Shepard in another room, 2 doors down. When we saw Matthew's condition, we knew it was way beyond our capabilities. I called the neurosurgeon at Poacher Valley. He was on the road in an hour and 15, I think.
They showed me a picture. Days later, I saw a picture of him. I would have never recognized him.
When I found the connection, I was very struck. I took care of both of them. They were 2 kids. And for a brief moment, I wondered if this is how God feels when He looks down at us. How are all His kids, our bodies, our souls? And for a brief moment, I had a huge amount of compassion for both of them.
I was in a coffee shop,
Romaine Patterson, Matthew's friend.
and someone pulled me aside and said, I don't know much, but they say that there's been a young man in Laramie who's been beaten, and they say his name's Matthew Shepard. And he told me, do you think this could be our Matthew? And I said, well, yeah, sounds like it could be our Matthew.
Friday morning, I first find out about it.
Mike Galloway, the bartender from the fireside.
So immediately, I drive to the nearest newsstand, buy a Laramie Boomerang because I want more details. Buy that, go home. Before I can even open the paper, my boss calls me. He says, did you hear what happened?
It was a Thursday afternoon.
Rulon Stacy, CEO at Poudre Valley Hospital.
I got a call. We just got this kid in from Wyoming, and it looks like he may be the victim of a hate crime. There's a couple of news reporters here asking questions. And so we agreed that we needed one spokesperson. As CEO, I said, I'd do it.
And that night, I watched the 10 o'clock news where they started speaking about the nature and the seriousness of it.
So I'm on the phone with my boss, and he's like, we need to go with the arraignment so we can identify these guys, make sure these guys are going to be barred. So we go with the arraignment.
The arraignment was on Friday, right around lunchtime. There's probably about 100 townspeople and probably as many news media.
Our focus today turns to Laramie, Wyoming, and the Albany County Courthouse, where Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson are being charged with the brutal beating of Matthew Shepard, a gay University of Wyoming student.
It was incredibly solemn. I mean, lots of people were teary, especially once Aaron and Russell were brought in. Then the judge came in and did a reading of the evidence that the prosecution has, and it's just a statement of facts. And the reading of the facts was,
The essential facts are that the defendants, Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson, met the victim, Matthew Shepard, at the fireside bar. And after Mr. Shepard confided that he was gay, both subjects deceived Mr. Shepard into leaving with them in their vehicle to a remote area. Upon arrival at said area, both subjects tied Mr. Shepard to a buck fence, robbed him, tortured him, and beat him. The defendants were later contacted by officers of the Laramie Police Department who observed inside the cab of their pickup a credit card and a pair of black patent leather shoes belonging to the victim, Matthew Shepard. They also took his credit card, a wallet containing $20 in cash and other items, and also obtained his address in order to later burglarize his home.
I don't think there was anyone in that room who wasn't crying at the end of it. I mean, it lasted 5 minutes, but it kept on getting more and more horrific, ending with, said defendants left the victim begging for his life.
How could this happen?
I think a lot of people just don't understand, and even I don't really understand how something like this could happen. We have one of the most vocal populations of gay people in the state, and it's pretty much live and let live. We uncover more and more details about the sheer brutality, motivations, how this happened. And then, quite frankly, the media descended, and there was no time to reflect on this anymore.
Laramie, Wyoming, often called the Gem City of the Plains, is now at the eye of the storm. The cowboy state has rednecks for sure, but there are no more biggest bird Russell in Wyoming than there are New York and Florida. Gay college student in their houses in North and Carolina, their families, as a never learned to recognize songs in English as a source of
It's a tough business, as Matt Shepard knew, and his friends all knew, to be gay in cowboy country.
Matthew Shepard medical update at 3 p.m. Saturday, October 10th.
Matthew Shepard was admitted in critical condition approximately 9:15 p.m. October 10th. When he arrived, he was unresponsive and breathing support was being provided. Matthew's major injuries upon arrival consisted of hypothermia and a fracture from behind his head to just in front of the right ear. This has caused bleeding in the brain as well as pressure on the brain. There were also several lacerations on his head, face, and neck. Matthew's parents arrived 7 p.m. October 9th and are now at his bedside. The following is a statement from them. First of all, we want to thank the American public for their kind thoughts about Matthew and their fond wishes for a speedy recovery. We appreciate your prayers and goodwill, and we know that there's something Matthew would appreciate too. We also have a special request for the members of the media. Matthew is in very much need of his family at this time, and we ask that you respect our privacy as well as Matthew's, so that we can concentrate all of our efforts, thoughts, and love on our son. Thank you very much.
Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson pled not guilty to the charges. Their girlfriends, Kristen Price and Chastity Paisley, also pled not guilty. Here is Alex Kreifels, who found Matthew at the fence.
I keep seeing that picture in my mind when I first found him. It's not pleasant whatsoever. I don't want it to be there. I want to get it out. It's kind of unbelievable, that I happen to be the person who found him. Because the big question with me, like with my religion, is why did God want me to find him?
One of the things that happened when I got to the fence,
Officer Reggie Flutie.
it was just such an overwhelming amount of blood. And we tried to wear protective gloves, but we had a really cheap sheriff at the time. And he bought us some shit gloves. You put them on and they just keep breaking. So eventually you just run out of gloves, So you figure, don't hesitate, it's what your mind tells you all the time, don't hesitate. So you just try and keep moving and help Matthew and find an airway. It's just what you do,
One thing I should probably mention is that Reggie's my daughter.
Marge Murray.
When she first told me she wanted to be a police officer, well, I thought that there wasn't a better choice for her. She could handle whatever came her way.
Probably a day and a half later, I get a call from the hospital and they told me Matthew had HIV. And the doctor said, you've been exposed, and it's a pretty bad exposure. Because you see, I'd been building a lean-to for my llamas, and my hands had a bunch of open cuts on them, and I was screwed, And you just think, oh shoot,
Would you like to talk about losing sleep?
So I asked the doctor, okay, what do I do? And the doctor said, get up here. So I got up there and we started the ATZ drugs immediately. They said that the medication, if administered within 36 hours of you being exposed, it can maybe stop your chances of getting the disease. And let me tell you, that is a mean, nasty medicine. Mean. I've lost 10 pounds and a lot of my hair. Yeah.
Quite frankly, I wanted to lash out at somebody. Not at Matthew. Please understand that. None of us was mad at Matthew. But maybe we all wanted to squeeze McKinney's head off. And I thought about Henderson too. And they're too two absolute human beings that are causing so much grief for so many people. It's been terrible for my whole family, but mostly for her and her kids too.
I think it brought home to my girls what their mom does for a living. And my parents, they both told me the same damn thing.
You're quitting that damn job.
It's just a parent thing, And they're terribly proud of you because you're doing a good job, whether you're handling a drunk or handling a case like this. And you're just, they don't want you getting hurt.
I just hope that she doesn't go before me. I just couldn't handle that.
University of Wyoming President Philip Dubois.
Well, this is a young person who has read about what has happened to Matthew, and has sent an email to me directly and said,
"You and the straight people of Laramie and Wyoming are guilty of the beating of Matthew Shepard, just as the Germans who looked the other way are guilty of the deaths of the Jews, the gypsies, and the homosexuals. You have taught your straight children to hate their gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, unless and until you acknowledge that Matt Shepard's beating is not just a random occurrence, not just the work of a couple random crazies. You have Matthew's blood on your hands."
well, I just can't begin to tell you what that does to a person. It's like you can't possibly know what I'm thinking. You can't possibly know what this has done to me, my family, and my community.
Following the incidents, vigils were held in Laramie, Denver, Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs. Soon after, in Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Nashville, and Minneapolis. In California, Los Angeles, California, 5,000 people gathered. In New York City, political rallies ended in civil disobedience. At the Pujo Valley Hospital website, many people expressed hope of Matthew's recovery.
Matthew Shepard medical update at 9 a.m. Sunday, October 11th.
As of 9 a.m. today, Matthew Shepard remains in critical condition. The family continues to emphasize that the media respect their privacy. The family also wants to thank the American public for their kind thoughts and concern for Matthew.
There are certain things when I sit at church,
Jedediah Schultz, theater student at University of Wyoming.
and the Reverend says flat out that he doesn't agree with homosexuality. And I don't know. I think right now I don't agree with homosexuality. Yeah, I don't agree with homosexuality. Because I've been taught my whole life that it's wrong. But that doesn't mean I hate homosexuals. And I wouldn't persecute them or anything like that at all. It's not something that I'd be getting between me and another person at all.
Yes, as a lesbian, I was concerned for my safety.
Zachy Salmon.
There's this whole idea. You leave me alone, I leave you alone. And it's even in some of the Western literature, live and let live. That is such crap. I tell my friends that. Even my gay friends bring it up sometimes, and I'm like, that is such crap, I mean, basically what it boils down to. If I don't tell you I'm gay, you won't beat the crap out of me. I mean, what's so great about that? That's a great philosophy.
There's more gay people around than what you think.
Mary Cooper, Laramie resident.
It doesn't bother anybody because most of them that are gay or lesbian know damn well who to talk to. If you step out of line, you're asking for it. Some people are saying made past them. You don't pick up regular people. I'm not excusing their actions, but it made me feel better because it was partially Matthew Shepard's fault and partially the guys who did it. Maybe it's 50-50.
At the vigil, it felt so good to be with people who felt like shit. Someone got up there and said, "Come on guys, let's show the world that Laramie is not this kind of a town." But it is that kind of a town. I mean, if it weren't that kind of a town, then why did this happen here? I mean, you know what I mean, like, that's a lie. Because it happened here. So how could it not be a place where this kind of thing happens? We need to be sad, and we need to mourn the fact that we live in a town, a state, a country where shit like this happens. And I'm not going to step away from that. We need to own this crime. I feel everyone needs to own it. are like this. We are like this. We are like this.
I was in the fireside one afternoon interviewing the bar when I ran into two friends of Aaron McKinney, Shannon and Jen. You knew Aaron well, right?
Yeah, we both did. When I first found out about this, I thought it was really, really awful. I don't know whether Aaron was fucked up or whether he was coming down or what, but Matthew had money. Shit. Matthew was a little rich bitch.
You shouldn't call him a rich bitch though, that's not right.
Well, I'm not saying he's a bad guy either, because he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, said the wrong things, and I don't know, I won't lie to you. There were times that I was all messed up on meth, and I thought about going out and robbing. I mean, I never did, but yeah, I was there. It's easy money.
Aaron's done that thing before. They've both done it.
But do you think that there was any homophobia involved in this that contributed to any of it?
Probably. It probably would have pissed him off that Matthew was gay because he didn't like the gay people that I've seen him interact with. But he was fine as long as they didn't hit him. As long as it didn't come up.
Yeah, as long as they weren't doing it in front of him.
What would you say to Aaron if you saw him right now?
If I saw Aaron now, I'd be like, man, why'd you fuck up like that? But I probably want to make sure he's okay because I don't know if he's doing good in there. He probably is though. I want to hang out with him.
Smoke a bowl with him.
I bet he wants me so bad.
So you guys both went to Laramie, huh?
Yeah, can't you tell? We're a product of our society.
On a day that is traditionally given over to the fortunes of the University of Wyoming football team, this community on the High Plains had a different kind of homecoming game Saturday, as many searched their souls in the wake of a vicious, apparent anti-gay hate crime.
University President Philip Dubois.
This was homecoming weekend, and there was a lot of people in town, and there was a homecoming parade that was scheduled. And so the students decided to tag on to the back of it, you know, behind the banner supporting Matt, and everybody was wearing the armbands the students had created.
I live in the center of town.
Doc O'Connor, limo driver.
My apartment has windows on two opposite streets. One goes north and one goes south. And that's exactly the homecoming parade route. Now, on the day of the parade, I had a cast on my leg because of a fall. So I was really disappointed because I couldn't march with the people that were walking for Matthew Shepard. But I couldn't. So I watched from my window. And it was just... I have lived in this town for many years, and I was truly moved to see the flag at the end of the homecoming parade. About 100 people marching for Matthew Shepard. So then the parade went down the street to make a U-turn. So I walked to the opposite side of my apartment to wait for it to come south down the other street.
I was right up in front there where they were holding the banner for Matthew. And let me tell you, I've never had goosebumps so long in my life. It was incredible. A mass of people, families. Just amazing. I mean, it was absolutely one of the most beautiful things I've ever done in my life.
Well, 10 minutes went by, and sure enough, the parade started coming down the street again. And I witnessed the most incredible thing. The amount of people marching for Matthew Shepard had grown 5 times. 500 people marching for Matthew Shepard. Can you even imagine? The tag was larger than the parade itself. People kept just joining in. And you know what? I started to cry.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
This is one of our last days on our second trip to Laramie. Greg and I have been conducting interviews nonstop and we are exhausted.
We are to meet Father Roger at 7:30 in the morning. Now, I was wishing we could skip it all together, but we have to follow through with this. So, here we go. 7:30 a.m., 2 queers and a Catholic priest.
Matthew Shepard has served us well. You realize that. He has served us well, and I do not mean to condemn Matthew Shepard's perfection, but I cannot think of anyone who has done more for his community than Matthew. I was very vocal in this community when this happened. I thought, should we call the bishop and pass his permission to the individual? And I was like, hello, no. His permission doesn't make it correct. You realize that. And I'm not knocking bishops, but what is correct is correct. You think violence is what they did to Matthew? They did do violence to Matthew. But, you know, every time you're called a fag or a, you know,
or a dyke.
Dyke, yeah, dyke. Do you realize that is violence? that is a seed of violence, and I resent that immensely. You need to know that.
Andrew Gomez.
I was in there. I was in jail there in December. Got thrown in over Christmas, assault and battery. I don't want to talk about it. But we were sitting there, eating our Christmas dinner, trying to eat my stuffing, my motherfucking bread, a little roll and whatnot. And I asked him, I was like, hey, homie, tell me something. Why would you kill a faggot if you're destined to be a faggot later? I mean, think about it. He's either gonna get humped alive, he's gonna die. So why would you do that? Think about that. And you know what he said to me? Honest to God, this is what he said. He goes, "You tried to grab my dick." That's what he said, man. He's dumb, dog. He don't even act like it was nothing. Now, I heard they was auctioning those boys off up in the Max Ward. You know, where the killers go. I heard that when they found out Aaron was coming to jail in December, they was auctioning those boys off. I'd be scared to go to prison if I were those two boys.
Hello.
Reverend, I believe your wife told you a bit about why I'm calling.
Yes, she did. And let me tell you, I don't know that I really want to talk to anyone about any of this incident.
Oh, I understand. I don't blame you. Well, you know, I went to your church this past Sunday.
Went to the services on Sunday?
Yes, I did.
On Sunday?
Yes, this past Sunday.
I see. Well, let me tell you, I'm not afraid to be controversial or to speak my mind. And that is not necessarily the views of my congregation, per se. Now, those two boys, the accused, have forfeited their lives. We've been after the two I mentioned for ages, trying to get them to live right, to do right. Now one of those boys is on suicide watch, and I'm working with him. Until they put him on the chair and turn on the juice, I'll work for his salvation. I think he deserves a death penalty, but I'll try to deal with him spiritually.
Right, I understand.
Now, as for the victim, I know that that lifestyle is legal. Let me tell you one thing. I hope that Matthew Shepard, as he was tied to that fence, that he had time to reflect on a moment when someone had spoken the word of the Lord to him. That before he slipped into a coma, he had a chance to reflect on his lifestyle.
Thank you for your speaking to me.
Rulon Stacy, CEO of Poudre Valley Hospital.
At 12:53 a.m., I had just barely gone to bed, and the doctor called me and said, Matthew just died. I quick got dressed and I went to the ICU where the family was, and his mom came up to me and she put her arms around me. And I put my arms around her and we just stood there, honestly, for about 10 minutes because what else do you do? They told me what they wanted me to say and I went out at 4 a.m.
Matthew Shepard medical update for 4:30 a.m., Monday, October 12th.
At 12 midnight on Monday, October 12th, Matthew Shepard's blood pressure began to drop. At 12:53, Matthew Shepard died. His family was at his bedside. They did release the following statement. The family again asked me to express their sincerest gratitude to the entire world for the overwhelming response for their son. The family was grateful that they did not have to make a decision regarding whether or not to continue life support for their son. Like a good son, he was caring to the end and removed all guilt and stress from the family. He came into this world premature and he left the world premature. Matthew's mother said, "Go home, give your kids a hug, and don't let a day go by without telling them that you love them."
The day of the funeral was snowing so bad. Big, huge, wet snowflakes. And there were thousands of people dressed in all black with umbrellas everywhere. And when I got there were two churches. One for immediate family, invited guests, people of that nature, and then one for anybody else who wanted to be there.
The liturgy today is an Easter liturgy that finds its meaning in the resurrection. Serving invites your full participation. Let us pray.
And I guess it was like the worst storm that they've ever had.
Zachy Salmon.
Like that anybody could ever tell. Like trees fell down and the power went out because of it. And I just thought, maybe it's the forces of the universe at work, you know? I mean, whatever higher power that blows the storms was blowing this storm.
For our brother Matthew, we pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
He was nourished with your body and blood. Grant him a place in the table of your heavenly kingdom. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Comfort us in the sorrows of the death of our brother. Let faith be our consolation and eternal life our hope. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
My most striking memory from the funeral
Catherine Connolly, university professor.
was seeing the Reverend Fred Wells, the protest he started in the park next to the cemetery.
Do you believe the Bible? You stand over there, ignorant of the fact that the Bible, 2 times for every verse, it talks about God's love. It talks about God's hate. We wouldn't be here today if this was just another murder the state was going to deal with. The state deals with hundreds of murders every single day. But this one's different because the facts are bringing us out here trying to make Matthew Shepard a poster boy for the gay lifestyle. And we're going to answer it.
A group of high school kids who got up early came over and started yelling at the Fred Wells people. And across the street you have people lining up for the funeral. I remember this guy coming over, this skinhead. He was dressed in spikes and leather everywhere. He came over from across the street where the protest was, and he came into the crowd. And I just thought, oh, this is going to be a really ugly confrontation. But instead, he started leading them in amazing grace.
Amazing grace. Amazing grace.
6 months later, the company returned to Laramie for the trial of Russell Henderson, the first of the 2 perpetrators. It was to be a capital murder trial. Fred Phelps was there to continue his protest.
God's hatred is pure. It's a determination. A determination that he's going to send some people to hell. That's God's hatred. We're here today with God's message. Is homosexuality is being a fag, okay? God hates fags. Why does he put him in hell?
After seeing Fred Phelps protesting at Matthew's funeral and finding out that he's coming to the trial of Russell Henderson, I decided that someone needs to stand toe-to-toe with this guy and show the differences. And I think at times like this, when we're talking about hatred as much as the nation is right now, that someone needs to show that there's a different way of dealing with that kind of hatred. So our idea is to dress up like angels. And so we've designed an angel outfit. Our wings are huge, they're like big ass wings. And there'll be 10 to 20 of us that are angels, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna encircle thumbs. And because of our big wings, we're gonna completely block him. So this big ass band of angels comes in, we don't say a fucking word, we just turn our backs to him, and we stand there. And we are a group of people bringing forth the message of peace and love and compassion. And we're calling it Angel Action. Yeah, this 21-year-old little lesbian is ready to walk the line.
Lance found that grace. The Payne Middleton doctor found that grace. Alonzo Sanders found that grace. Daniel L. Simmons Sr. found that grace. Sharonda Coleman Singleton found that grace. Myra Thompson found that grace. Through the example of their lives, they've now passed it on to us.
The court is in session.
You entered a not guilty plea earlier, Mr. Henderson, but I understand you wish to change your plea. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You understand, Mr. Henderson, that the recommended sentence here is 2 life sentences.
Yes, ma'am.
You understand that those sentences may run concurrently or consecutive?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Henderson, I will now ask you how you wish to plead, guilty or not guilty.
Guilty.
Before the court decides whether those sentences will run concurrent or consecutive, you have the constitutional right to make a statement if you would like to do so. Do you have anything you would like to say?
Yes, I would, Your Honor. Mr. and Mrs. Shepard, there's not a moment that goes by that I don't see what happened that night. I know what I did was wrong, and I regret greatly what I did. You have my greatest sympathy for what happened. I hope that one day you will be able to find it in your hearts and forgive me. Your Honor, I know what I did was wrong.
I'm sorry for what I did, and I'm ready to pay my debt for what I did.
Mr. Henderson, you drove the vehicle that took Matthew Shepard to his death. You bound him to that fence in order that he might be more savagely beaten and that he might not escape to tell his story. You left him on that fence for 18 hours, knowing full well that he was there, perhaps having an opportunity to save his life, and you did nothing. Mr. Henderson, this court does not believe that you feel any true remorse for your part in this matter, and I wonder, Mr. Henderson, whether you fully realize the gravity of what you've done. Therefore, the court finds it appropriate that sentence be ordered as follows. As to count 1, that being felony murder with robbery, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for the term of your natural life. As to count 3, kidnapping, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for the term of your natural life. Sentencing for count 1 to run consecutive for sentencing for count 3.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
Before we left Laramie, we met again with Rebecca Hilliker, head of the theater department. She is producing Angels of America this year at the university, the play that Jedediah used to win his scholarship.
I think that's the focus the university has taken, is that we have a lot of work to do. We have an obligation to reach our whole student body. And the question is, how do you reach a whole state where there's some really deep-seated hostility towards gays? How do you reach them? This is the beginning. And guess who's auditioning for the lead?
I was so pumped when they announced we'd be doing Angels in America.
Jedediah Schultz.
My parents were like, so what plays are you doing in school this year? And I was like, I gave them the list. And they were like, Angels in America? Is that play you did in high school? That scene you did in high school? And I was like, yeah, and we got in this huge argument. And the best thing that I knew I had them on is I'd just been in a production of Macbeth. And I murdered a little kid and a woman. And my mom goes, well, you know, homosexuality is a sin. And I'm just like, I played a murderer last night, and you didn't have a problem with that.
Before all this, I never dealt that much with gay society here in Laramie.
Sergeant Hing.
But once we started working on the case and actually speaking to the people that were gay and finding out what the underlying fears were, well then, it sort of hit home. This is America. You don't have the right to feel that fear. And we're still going to have people who hold on to old ideals, and that was probably one of them 14 months ago. I'm not going to put up with it now, and I'm not going to deal with it. And if they don't like my views on it, fine. The door goes both ways. I already lost a couple of buddies. I don't care. I feel more comfortable, and I can sleep at night.
Well, you're tested every 3 months.
Reggie Flutie.
They brought me to Fort Collins, drew the blood there, did the DNA testing, and about a week later, I found out I was negative for good. I'll tell you, we were all on our knees saying Hail Mary. You're just so elated, you know, and you think, thank God.
So what's the first thing that she does?
I stuck my tongue right in my husband's mouth. I was just happy, you know, you're just so happy. And you think, yeah, I hope I did this service well, you know? I hope I did this with some kind of integrity. And you're just so happy, and my daughters just bawled.
They were so happy.
And the force,
oh boy.
We went out and got shit-faced. It was great. Everybody bought me drinks and we all hugged and cried. And I kissed everybody who walked through the door.
Reggie, they don't need to know that.
I didn't care if they were male or female. They all got a kiss on the lips.
No, what part of what I just told you didn't
Almost a year to the day that Matthew Shepard died, the trial for Aaron James McKinney was set to begin. The county attorney's office decided it would definitely be a death penalty case.
I think right now our most important teachers must be Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney. They have to be our teachers. How did you learn? What did we as a society do to teach you that?
All rise. State of Wyoming versus Aaron James McKinney. The Honorable Vanya R. Voigt presiding. The court is in session.
During the trial, Aaron McKinney, the prosecution played a tape recording of McKinney's confession. This is an excerpt from that confession.
My name is Sergeant Hayne. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used against you in a court of law.
Yep.
So you guys, you and Russ go to the fireside. Where do you go after you leave the fireside?
Some kid wanted to ride home.
What's he look like?
Like a fag, you know?
Did you meet him?
Well, he needed a ride home, and I just thought the dude's drunk, so let's take him home.
What didn't you and Russ talk about jacking him up?
We kind of talked about it at the bar.
Okay, what happened next?
Well, we drove him out past Walmart, and once we got over there, he started grabbing my leg and grabbing my genitals, and I'm like, look, I'm not a fucking faggot. If you touch me again, you're gonna get it. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do, but I beat him up pretty bad. I think I may have killed him.
Did you beat him with?
I blacked out, but fist, my gun, I butted my gun. I was wondering what happened to me. I had a few beers. I don't know, it's like I could see what was going on. But I don't know, it was like someone else was doing it.
What was the first thing that he said or did in the truck that made you hear?
He slid his hand down my leg as if he was gonna grab my balls.
Did he try to defend himself or hit you back?
He had his little swings or whatever, but it wasn't very effective.
Okay. How many times you hit him in the truck before he got stopped or you left?
Say maybe like 2 or 3 times, something like 3 times with my fist and 6 times with the pistol.
Did he ask you to stop?
I mean, yeah, he's getting the shit kicked out of him.
What did he say?
Most of all he was doing after he asked us to stop was screaming.
So, Russ kind of dragged him out over the fence, I'm assuming, and tied him up?
Something like that. I just remember Russ was laughing at first and then he got pretty serious.
Was Matthew conscious when Russ tied him up?
Yeah, I remember I told Matthew to turn around because he might see my license plate number and I was scared to tell the police. And then when I asked him what my license plate number was, he read it, so I hit him a few more times.
Just to be sure? So, obviously you don't like gay people.
No, I don't.
You say you hate them?
I wouldn't say I hate them, but when they start to come on to me and stuff like that, I think I get pretty aggravated.
But did he threaten you?
Gay dude? Nah.
Can you ask me one thing? Why'd you take your shoes?
I don't know. I'm never gonna see my son again.
I don't know. Probably go to Corsican today.
You're gonna die for sure?
There's no doubt that Mr. Shepard is going to die.
So what are they gonna give me? 25 to life, or just get it over with the death penalty?
It's not a job. It's the judge's job. And the jury's.
The jury's verdict.
Your Honor, we the jury unanimously find as follows. As to charge of kidnapping, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of aggravated robbery, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of first-degree felony murder kidnapping, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of first-degree felony murder or robbery, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty.
Aaron McKinney was found guilty of felony murder, which meant the court would give him the death penalty. That evening, John and Denise Shepard met with McKinney's defense team, who pled for their client's life. John Shepard made the following statement.
My son Matthew did not look like a winner. He was rather uncoordinated and more braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life, he proved that he was a winner. Matthew officially died in a hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. He actually died on the outskirts of Laramie, tied to a fence. You, Mr. McKinney, with your friend Mr. Henderson, left him out there by himself. But he wasn't alone. He had his lifelong friends with him. Friends that he had grown up with. First, he had the beautiful night sky and the same stars and moon he used to see through a telescope. Then, he had the daylight and the sun to shine on him. And through it all, he was breathing in the scent of pine trees from the snowy range. He heard the wind, the ever-present Wyoming wind, for the last time. He had one more friend with him. He had God, and I feel better knowing he wasn't alone. Matt's beating, hospitalization, and funeral focus worldwide attention on hate. Good is coming out of evil. People have said enough is enough. I miss my son, but I am proud to be able to say that he is my son. I believe in the death penalty. I would love nothing more than to see you die, Mr. McKinney. However, this is a time to begin the healing process. To show mercy to someone who refused to show any mercy. Mr. McKinney, I'm going to grant you life, as hard as it is for me to do so, because of Matthew. Every time you celebrate Christmas, a birthday, the 4th of July, remember, Matt isn't. Every time you wake up in your prison cell, remember, you had the opportunity and the ability to stop your actions that night. You robbed me of something very precious, and I will never forgive you for that. Mr. McKinney, I'm going to grant you life in the memory of one who no longer lives. May you live a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it.
When the trial ended, me and the sergeant hugged and cried. And, you know, everybody had tears in their eyes, and you're just so thankful. And, you know, Mr. Shepard was crying, and that got me bawling, and everybody just...
It just hit me today. The minute that I got out of the courthouse. That the reason that God wanted me to find him is so that he didn't have to die out there alone, you know? It makes me feel really good to know that he didn't have to die out there alone.
It's time to move on. And I think the citizens, they're just gonna be glad to maybe get moved on.
On our last trip, I had the good fortune of seeing Jedediah Schultz play the lead role in Angels of America. After the show, we spoke.
I don't know. It's just weird, man. I just feel bad. The thing I told you, the person I used to be. How did I ever believe those things about me? How did I ever let it make me think you were different?
Well, a year ago, I wanted to be a rock star. That was my goal. Well, now that's obviously changed. Instead of going to school to be music, I'm going to go to school for communications and political science because I have a career in political activism. Actually, I recently found out that I was going to be honored in Washington, D.C. from the Anti-Defamation League. And whenever I think of the Angels or any of the speaking that I've done, Matthew's like guiding this little path for me to walk down with his light. And every time we get to like a door, he opens it and says, okay, next step. If I get to be a rock star on the side, okay.
Change is not an easy thing, and I don't think the people are up for it here. They got what they wanted. Those two boys got what they deserved, and we look good now. Justice is served, and we don't got to talk about it anymore. But, you know, it's been a year since Matthew Shepard died, and they haven't passed shit in Wyoming. At a state level, any town, nobody anywhere has passed anything. Anti-discrimination laws, hate crime legislation. Nobody anywhere has passed anything. What's come out of this? What's come out of this that's concrete or lasting?
We all said we would meet again one last time.
I've been up to that site in my limousine many times. And I remember to myself the night me and Matt drove around together. He said to me, Laramie sparkles, doesn't it? And where he was, up there, if you sit exactly where he was, right up there, Laramie sparkles from there. Maybe it's the low-lying cloud, the blue lights that shimmer off of us from the airport. I mean, it just blows you away. And right up there, the last thing Matt saw on this earth were the sparkling lights.
We spent the last 2 days packing a year's worth of materials and saying our goodbyes.
Marge was just slut, and when we asked her how Laramie would feel seeing a play about itself, she said,
I think we'd enjoy it. To show that it's not the helpful of the earth would be nice. But then, that's up to how you portray us. And that, in turn, is up to how Laramie behaves.
As we were getting off the phone, she said to me,
No, you stay safe. I love you, honey.
Doc asked me if I would ghostwrite a book about the Holy Land. Mark Galloway asked me and anyone else if and when we came back to stay in Laramie, he could give us a place to stay. He also seemed interested as into if there would be any open auditions.
We left around 7 in the evening. On the way to Denver, I looked in my rearview mirror to take one last look at the town. In the distance, I could see the sparkling lights of Laramie, Wyoming.